In this video, we'll show how to use collaborative structuring to structure the All-Star Sports case. We'll log in as before with your email address, blank for your password. And then we'll say new project, group name and group number, your initials, and the name of the project. And then again, we're going to focus, I'm going to structure objectives, alternatives, participants, and roles. So we'll start out with objectives. And we're going to be using team time structuring. So if you want, you can look at the help. And there's a video on how to do this. So I'm just going to give you some highlights of that. And so we'll say start team time structuring. We'll do this just for one person, then I'll show you how you can do this for several people in your group working together. So I'll click this to start the meeting. And then we can drag objectives or alternatives or both onto this pad and then drag them to the objectives hierarchy or to the alternatives pane. So first we'll drag in some of the alternatives. One alternative was to have one large group to make the decisions. Another alternative was to have the top management team. And the third alternative was to fine-tune the current process. Now at this point we could drag them into the alternatives pane and then put objectives in and drag those in. We're going to do something a little bit more analytical. We're going to consider pros and cons. So I'm going to put just a marker in here for pros, another one for cons. And we'll color these. Let's say we color the cons red and we'll color the pros green. And now we're going to take one of the alternatives. Let's suppose we're dealing with the alternative, just the top management team. Put these aside. And what are some of the pros and cons of going just with the top management team? Well, one of the pros is that maybe we can make this a different color. Let's make this blue. Well, that's the pad over here. Let's make that a lighter blue. And let's make this one blue as well. So one of the pros would be that ensures control, that the top level managers would have more control, which is something that top management really likes to have. A con of doing this would be that it doesn't lead very well to consensus. A pro would be it would be time efficient. And so on. So we could list the pros and cons of this alternative. Now once we finish doing that, we could take the pros and cons and translate them into objectives. So let's click on objectives. And we'll take each one of these and drag it into the decision hierarchy and perhaps edit the name to make it an objective. So control by top level management, well, that's an objective, so we'll leave that as it is. Time efficient. If we drag that in under the goal, really the objective here would be time efficiency. It's just a little changing of the word. And then consensus would also be another objective. Now we can put this aside, or actually we can, if we're finished with this, we can take this and put this into the alternatives pane and go back to the objectives. And now, what are some of the objectives for one large group? So we can list what are the pros and cons? We can list some pros and cons for one large group. And if some of the pros and cons point to the same objectives that are already in the hierarchy, that's fine. We don't have to add them again. In fact, we don't add them again. But if we have other objectives that come from the pros and cons for each of these, then we would then put those to the objectives hierarchy. After doing that, we would do the same thing with fine-tuning the current process. So I'm going to skip those steps here. But that's a nice way from the bottom up of identifying what your objectives are. So what I'll do here is just take these alternatives, put them back under the alternatives pane. So now we have some objectives. Of course, if we did this more fully, we'd have more. And we have our alternatives. And now we can stop the structuring section, close the window, and back to model. We have our objectives and we have the alternatives. In the next video, I'll show you how to continue on with this to do it in a team time mode.